Hello, Mr. Shine here, back once again for the thrilling conclusion of my Warrior Draft for the Arena Quiz series. Last time you saw me, I was tackling a Warrior Draft, valuing each pick and having folks follow along with me and tally up their scores at the end. As with my Priest Arena Quiz, I had tons of great feedback from a variety of folks, and ultimately determined that I owe people beer. A lot of beer. I mean, a ton of people scored between 95 and 99 points. So my draft was either too straightforward or I was too lenient with secondary picks. Maybe it was a mix of both, so in the interest of making more people mad at me, I might need to sharpen the edges on a future draft, and dock people more points if they choose incredibly wrong cards. All joking aside though, the interest was awesome, and I'm happy people have been enjoying them. But enough about me and my sentimental musings. You guys opened up this video to see some hard facts about this run, and doggone it, I'm gonna give you the goods. So fortunately for me, this Warrior deck exceeded my expectations, and we ended up taking the deck all the way to 9 wins. As many of you know, 7 wins is the point where you are guaranteed at least 150 gold returned to you, as well as an expert pack and sometimes some other goodies. So this ended up being a profitable arena run. I'll keep the deck list alongside this video so you can see what it looked like throughout. As with most arena runs, the success or failures tended to be the culmination of my deck's strength and the personal skill within the game. But there are also a lot of moments that defined the run and can win you or cost you a game or two. I'm going to go through a few of the keys to the run so you can get a sense of what went down. The Ghost of Mind Control tech. So if you've played Arena for a while, you may be familiar with the dreaded Mind Control tech. It's a great Arena 3-drop that usually is a 3/3 for 3 mana, but sometimes it can create huge swings in the game with its battle cry, and has been known to turn games completely on their heads. Its blue rarity makes it uncommon in that less than half the decks out there will have one, but just common enough that the fear is always there in the back of my mind whenever I place 4 minions on the board. With that background, let's fast forward through part of a Mage deck. This was my first game, so I was in the low end of the arena where anything can happen. I ended up getting to the point in the game where I thought I glimpsed some telltale signs that the Mind Control tech may be in the future, and I reacted accordingly. The fact that the Mage wasn't clearing my minions and was playing taunts and some other things that allowed a slow play seemed to be giving me opportunities to place more things on the board. This set off my spider senses, so I tried to have only 3 on the board even if I had some strong plays I could have made. The pinnacle of this thought process came when the Mage played Cone of Cold but chose not to clear anything. This is a pretty risky play usually because heals or buffs could effectively negate most of the value he tried to get with Cone of Cold, but I was so convinced he was trying to goad me into dropping another minion so he could play Mind Control tech that I didn't play the Stormwind Champion on such an ideal board. I was feeling so good about sniffing out the Mind Control tech that this play hit me like a ton of bricks. Arcane Explosion is usually a pretty subpar card, but I walked right into it while worrying about a Mind Control tech that never came. I went on to lose that game and was 0-1 right away. Definitely the low point of the run for me, since the paranoia cost me a game that I probably should have won. Blood Knight value. So I was hoping to get some Blood Knight value from this deck, and I wasn't disappointed. It paid off in my 3rd game, snagging a shield from a Silver Moon Guardian and paving the way to a fairly easy win against the Mage. In Game 6 I had pretty much the dream scenario, where I was able to play the Blood Knight on curve, steal the enemy's Divine Shield, and clear it on the same turn without giving up my much board position. In that game it ended up eating a Polymorph, so it couldn't get too out of hand, but it did help give me tempo. Since the Mage couldn't ping the sheep that turn he polyed, and I was able to progress my board after that. I ended up sputtering a bit when he blizzarded and cleared most of my board, but Baron Geddon was able to swoop in and mop up, eating 2 minions and a fireball. Finally, in my 11th game and final win, I had both Blood Knights around and was able to get some fun tricksiness in by brewing the Blood Knight and replaying it while having another in my hand. Sure enough, the following turn the Mage had an Argent Commander and didn't pop the bubble, and I was able to reap the rewards. These 3 games were the ones that I was able to capitalize on Blood Knight, and I can't complain that 25% of my games involved a fancy 3-mana 6/6 swing. Game 5. Game 5 had a plethora of interesting events in it. On the one hand, it was against a tough Paladin deck that was giving me a run for my money. It was back and forth until Lay on Hands shifted the balance of power significantly in his favor. Fortunately though, when I was at the end of my ropes, who should appear but the trusty Baron Geddon, clearing the majority of my opponent's board and shifting momentum quite a bit back. This was one of those games where the legendary card ended up paying off and giving me enough of a swing to muster a fighting chance. However, shortly afterward, the Paladin was able to clear Geddon, and I was put in a very unusual predicament. Assuming I took 5 damage the following turn and the Paladin didn't have a taunt or a heal, I had enough damage in my hand to steal lethal from him. him. The trick was getting down to 12 HP so that my Mortal Strike would hit for 6, but not armoring up, especially after I had to think about it for a while, would have been a dead giveaway that something was up, especially if I had just passed my turn. In the end, I was too much of a scaredy cat to go that route, and I decided to clear his board instead. I wish I could replay that moment though and see if the Paladin would have sniffed me out and not pushed me to the 12 HP mark. Finally, that game demonstrated the reach my warrior deck had with its charge minions and other damaging spells and weapons I had available. Once again, at the very end, I was in somewhat of a tentative position, but a lucky top deck and my deck's natural burst ability was able to push through for a victory. It was certainly a game that I stole that run, as it could have easily wound up in the loss column. Game 9. Game 9 made me sweat bullets. In this match I was facing a hyper-aggressive mage deck that spammed the board with weenies, and there was a point in the game where she had a cult master behind a shield wall of mirror images. I was very happy I didn't use my slam earlier as removal, because it was very likely I would have lost if that cult master was unclearable. I continued to battle a swarm of weenies kept afloat by duplicate and mirror entity, but I could tell the mage's deck was designed for an incredibly low curve, so once I was able to stabilize and armor up every turn, I simply became out of reach for the mage and was able to skate to a 7-win mark. Finally, that brings us to the final match of the run, my 12th game, and the one where I was shooting for 10 wins. Let's look at each aspect of the run. The mulligan. I ended up keeping a hand of 2 2s and 2 4s. The reason was the 4s were very solid and the fiery War Axe is always good. I felt comfortable being able to either coin out the Grunt or slow play it and coin out a Yeti. Rather unconventional, but with the coin in hand I felt somewhat okay with it. Turn 1. With the Warrior's Worgen Infiltrator I didn't want to coin out a Grunt early only to have it killed by the 1-drop, or worse, and more likely, eating a fiery War Axe. So I just decided to wait and see if he was going to show his Infiltrator the following turn. Turn 2. Since I was playing against a warrior, I felt it was very likely he had fiery War Axe in hand and was waiting for me to play something. Because of this, I felt like playing a minion was better than playing the axe, since it would cause him to be off curve on his 3-mana turn if he wanted to axe instead of using the Worgen. Turn 3. He took the trade and dropped an Acolyte. In Constructed I might be inclined to clear it so that it can't take Whirlwind or Cruel Taskmaster damage, but it was slightly less likely he'd be able to immediately get value from the Acolyte here. Instead I wanted to get the best thing on the board you can on turn 4, a trusty Yeti. Turn 4. My trusty Yeti got destroyed! At this point I felt it was worth clearing the board and playing the Murloc. I could have played Dark Iron Dwarf, but I wanted to hold it at this point for some value later, and besides, the warrior had a board to clear the Dark Iron without losing a card. At least me playing the Bluegill was able to get a tiny bit of extra damage in, and making the warrior overkill with the weapon. Turn 5. A very awkward turn based on what I had in my hand. I could have cleaved and cleared the board, but I would have been left with nothing of my own. The alternative was to bring out the Arcanite Reaper, but that also seemed to be somewhat lackluster at this point. I ended up bringing out Dark Iron Dwarf to trade evenly with a Knight, but in retrospect I wonder if Arcanite Reaper simply would have been my best play after clearing the 2-2. Turn 6. I at least have a way to clear the board and establish something of my own, but I'm behind in card advantage at this point. Hopefully I can make some use out of my Cleave and my Reaper. Turn 7. I didn't want to give the commander a chance to get a bunch of minions out in a hurry or to trade well into my Stormwind champion, so I took the weapon route and cleared while keeping a Reaper charge at the ready. Turn 8. Every time I hope to use Cleave, I don't get a chance because he keeps plopping down single minions. I wasn't happy bringing out the champion here without killing the Archmage, but it was the only thing I had in hand that didn't die for free to the 4-7 on board. Turn 9. The Funeral Dirge is a play-in because the Gorehowl pretty much sealed my fate. Not only did it eliminate the biggest threat in hand while keeping a 6 damage weapon on the board, but the warrior still didn't have 2 minions out for my Cleave, so I once again had no way of clearing this SOB. From this point the fat lady started singing, so I'll spare you all the gory details. So we weren't able to get past the 9-win mark, but I still think this deck did a great job, so let's give it a pat on the back. There, warrior deck, you done did good. Okay, so anyways, the rewards were rather lackluster. As I mentioned earlier, 150 gold is the bare minimum after 7 wins, so this was a bit underwhelming as far as that goes. I'm not too unhappy to see the Gold Raider though, since if I want I can melt him down for a decent amount of dust to help build up my legendary collection. And now we come to the gripping conclusion, the part where I open up the expert pack. Let's see if I can top my Priest Run's Hungry Crab reveal. Sadly no, nothing too exciting this time as we get a standard pack with no extra goodies. Well, that's it for today. In my next arena quiz video, I'll be trying out another hero in the arena and do a similar quiz as the ones before. Hopefully you can have more interesting choices for you and I to walk through together. If you've been enjoying these videos and want to see more, please be sure to subscribe to the Hearthstone Players YouTube channel for more Hearthstone content. Or you can hit up my personal channel, link in the description. I've been Mr. Shine and I'll see you next time.